today is day 1 of many days of multiplying and factoring review from Algebra 1. Our main focus is going to be on factoring for most of the days, but today we're really going to be looking at mostly the multiplication process and patterns and recognizing different patterns. So let's just start off with our examples. Number 1, multiplying. We're going to be distributing on numbers 1, 2, and 3. So distribute negative 4x squared to both of these. So that would give us negative 12x cubed. Distribute there and distribute here. That would be positive 28x squared. Because remember, when you multiply, you add your exponents, and that is x to the first power. So number 2, distribute. 11x times x is 11x squared. 11x times negative 2 is negative 22x. Moving along to number 3. Negative 6 times 4 is negative 24x with the squared. Negative 6 times 5 is negative 30 with the x. And negative 6 times negative 9 is positive 54. So that's all for the distributing. Just take the single term times everything in the parentheses, making sure that you add your exponents. And there was no collect and like terms here, so our answers were just what we got after we multiplied. Now for the next section, we're going to do a lot of mental multiplication. You notice I have multiply mentally. On all of these, a lot of you learn this as FOIL, first, outer, inner, last. And I'm going to write out all the steps on the first problem. Well, I'm going to write it out over here to the side. And then after that, I'm going to show you what I'm talking about by multiply mentally. And I really wish I would have done this in Algebra 1 because it's going to help you a lot with the factoring process. So x times x is x squared, and x times 2 is 2x. 3 times x is 3x, and 3 times 2 is 6. Now what I'm talking about multiply mentally is I want y'all to do this part right here in your head mentally, and I want you to multiply the outsides and the insides together in your head and add them. So you can tell me that this is x squared plus 5x plus 6 without writing all those steps down. So here's what I want you to be able to do for me without writing out all the steps. X times x is x squared, and I want you to mentally in your head multiply the outsides, and in your head I want you to think that you have 2x. Multiply the insides, and in your head think that you have 3x. Combine them together. This is all mentally in your head, and now you know that you have 5x. And then the outsides, 3 times 2 is 6. And this is all mentally in your head without writing out all the steps. So let's try number 5 the same way. X times x is x squared. I'm going to write out to the side, and if you need to, that's fine, but remember, this should be going on in your head. X times 7 is 7x. Negative 1 times x is negative 1x. Try to keep that in your head if possible without writing it down. Combine that. That's 6x, so that's our middle part. And then multiply the last ones. Negative 1 times 7 is negative 7. And number 6, x times x is x squared. I'm not going to write down my little cheats over here to the side. Let's see if we can just keep it mentally. X times 5 is negative 5x. 5 times x is positive 5x. So negative 5x and positive 5x combined together is nothing. I'll write it down now that we've talked about it. Negative 5x and positive 5x cancels to be nothing. So there's nothing here in the middle. And then 5 times negative 5 is negative 25. So that's what we get on number 6. Okay, same thing for 7, 8, 9, and 10. these are the types of problems that everybody messes up on. And off to the side here, I'm going to write the steps or the long process on how you would do this, and then I'm going to show you a shortcut or a pattern, and then the mental thought process we should go through. X plus 6 squared means x plus 6 times another x plus 6. Okay, x plus 6 twice. Okay, if we just go through this mental process that we just went through, we're going to have x squared plus, I'm going to write out the long steps just so we can see it. We're going to have a 6x and another 6x, and 6 times 6 is 36. So here in the middle I have 12x. So this is going to be x squared plus 12x plus 36. Now, let's think about a way we could come up with this answer without writing out these long steps every time. And I'm going to show you kind of, it's a pattern. And again, this is something that y'all should have gone through in Algebra 1, but I have a strong feeling that y'all didn't. So I'm going to show you a pattern that we can go through to come up with these answers each time. We're always going to square the first one, and we're always going to square the last one. This is going to be positive 36. Okay, we squared the first one, we squared the last one. But a lot of y'all always tend to forget that you have something here in the middle. Notice that we had 6x twice. Okay, we had two 6x's. Well, okay, you can't see that yet. Let me try again. 6x came from 6 times x. 6 times x was 6x. But look, I had two of them. 6x, and then you're going to double that, or times 2. Okay, 6 times x is 6x, double it or multiply it times 2, and then that's where your 12x comes from. Same pattern, same process every time. So let's try another one. Square the first one, that's 9x squared. Let's square the last one. Negative 2 squared, or times itself, is positive 4. Well, where does the middle come from? Multiply those together. That's negative 6x doubled. So let's double it. Negative 6x doubled is negative 12x. Okay, moving right along. 8x, square it. 8x, square that. 64x squared. Alright, how about negative 1 squared? That's positive 1. Alright, multiply those together. That's negative 8x. Alright, double it. Negative 8x doubled is negative 16x. And one more of these. 10x squared. 10x squared squared. 10x squared times itself. That will be 100x to the fourth. 3 squared, or 3 times itself, is positive 9. Multiply those together. That's 30x squared. Now I need to double it. That will be 60x squared. Okay, let's try a few more multiplication problems, and then we'll finish up with a few common factors. So in 11, 12, and 13, there's no special patterns here, just some regular multiplication ones, and we're going to do some mental multiplication. Let's multiply the first ones. 5x times 10x, oh sorry, I kind of gave you the answer there. 5x times 2x is 10x squared. Now let's do the outsides and the insides. Outsides, that's 15x. Remember, this is supposed to be mental. Multiply the insides, that's 4x. Combine them together, 19x. Multiply the last. 2 times 3 is 6. Okay, number 12. 2x times 3x is 6x squared. Outsides, 8x. Insides, negative 3x. Combine those. 5x in the middle. Right, multiply the last ones together. Negative 1 and 4 is negative 4. And one more of these. 7x times 7x is 49x squared. Outsides, that's negative 14x. Insides, positive 14x, which means anything in the middle here is totally gone, canceled out. Because negative 14x and positive 14x cancels. And negative 4. So 49x squared minus 4. Okay, and we're going to finish up today with just the very easiest beginning part of factoring, taking out a common factor. You're just looking at what all of these have in common, and you want to take out the greatest common factor that they have in common. So on number 14, if you'll notice, these all have a common factor of 3 as far as numbers go, and they all have x's in common, and you want to take out as many x's as you can. So I can divide them all by 3, and I can pull out as many as 4 x's. So 3x to the 4th is going to be my common factor. Now I'm not going to do this on every problem, but technically what you're doing here is you're dividing by 3x to the 4th. So if it helps you to write 3x to the 4th underneath each term and actually see the division process, then you can do that. But you're dividing 3x to the 4th out of every single term. So if I divide 3x to the 4th out of this first term, I'm left with x squared, because you subtract exponents when you divide, plus I'm left with 3x here, minus, and I'm left with just 2 right here. X squared plus 3x minus 2 is what you're left with when you divide out 3x to the 4th. Be sure to put what you're factoring out in the front of your parentheses. Number 15, common factor as far as numbers go is 5. They all have an x in common. I can only pull out one x. They all have a y in common. I can only pull out one y. So 5xy is my common factor. Again, if it helps you to write 5xy under each term so you can see what you're dividing, fine, you can do that. So if I divide 5 by 5, I get 1. If I divide out my x's, I'm left with 1x, and I don't have any y's left, so I'm only left with an x for this term. What do I have left in this? Well, I'm left with 3y. So 5xy factored out, you're left with x minus 3y. Now we have 2 more examples left. A common factor here is 6 is all that you can divide out. You can't take any x's out because the 24 does not have an x. So I'm going to divide both of these by 6, and when I do that, I'm left with 3x to the 3rd minus 4. And one more, on number 17. I see that these both have x's in common, but I don't see any numbers that they have in common other than 1, and 1 doesn't help you any. And I can only take out 1x because this only has x to the 1st. So I'm going to take out 1x. If I take an x out of this, I'm left with an x. If I take an x out of 5x, I'm left with 5. So that is how you factor out a common factor. And on your assignment on the worksheet, I want you to do all the multiplication problems and go all the way through common factor. You can stop after taking out a common factor, okay? Stop at that point on your worksheet. And I should be able to see you tomorrow.